Welcome, listeners, to Virtually Amazing Assistant, the podcast for assistants everywhere. And I'm thrilled to be back again this week, and just even more thrilled. That's a bit of a weird sentence, just even more thrilled. But anyway, we'll go with that. Thrilled to welcome my guest this week, the amazing Daniel Skermer of the PA Forum in Birmingham. And I've got my crib sheet as ever. I mean, you've listened to me this many weeks, you know that I have a crib sheet. So I'm going to tell you all about Daniel. Daniel is the founder of the PA Forum, which he started in 2016 with the idea of bringing together EAs and PAs and executives and business support professionals in Birmingham and the surrounding areas. And under his leadership, the PA Forum has received multiple awards and recognitions, including the External PA Network of the Year Award. I had to read that bit because I've forgotten. Daniel's launched several initiatives. I am so impressed by this, including an annual learning and development conference, which I've spoken at, a mentoring initiative, and a schools engagement program. And I want to talk about that because I think that sounds phenomenal. He's also been involved in supporting local charities and partnering with organisations to champion business support for a very supportive community. And Daniel's efforts have been recognised with the PA Forum itself winning Network of the Year in the Strategic PA Network Awards. And I spoke to Sarah and Marianne a few weeks ago, and his nomination for the Inspirational Man of the Year category, which is amazing. So, Daniel, did I miss anything out?
No, Shelley, thank you. It's because we've known each other for so long. It's just very unusual to hear you introduce me in that way. But bless you. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me back. It's so wonderful to be able to spend some time with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it is great because Daniel and I, listeners, have known each other for well, you started the PA Forum in 8 years, so we must have known each other around about 8 years at least. And I've done a few events, spoken at a few virtual events for Daniel, which is always a pleasure. And he is the most wonderful, ethical, authentic human being you could meet. So that's really, really nice. So Daniel, let's launch into my prepared topics, but we are probably going to go off piste a bit because we both like to natter. We do. So can you tell us more about why you created the PA Forum? What inspired you to start it back then in 2016?
Yes, I think for me, I've had a chance to kind of reflect on this over the past couple of years. And I feel like it's because I worked abroad. We covered this on the last podcast, but I worked abroad for many, many years. I think I've always been traditionally in a role of service. So, for example, my role when you came on holiday, when I worked overseas as a Thomas Cook rep, was to make sure that you had the very best experience possible. And it was quite difficult at some point to be able to manage guest expectations. For example, we all know everybody pays twice as much for the room and the flight that you would do if you were coming in February as opposed to the school holidays, for example. So, immediately the guest expectation is very high, and we have to deliver them the very best experience possible. And that means dealing with challenges that they come across when they walk into the resort. Their air conditioning might not work in. They might have a cockroach in their room for some occasion. The food might not be very nice. There might be a series of illnesses in the hotel. There might be health and safety issues that we need to come across. They might have had a really bad flight on the way there, and they've just arrived in quite an incredibly bad mood. We've all been there. We've all travelled abroad.
Yes.
We know what it's like. But ultimately, you are that person that is there to make them have that great experience. And actually, we were targeted on customer service scores. So we always used to make sure that when you go back on that flight on the way home and you get the customer service tick box, that you always have tick excellent in there. And we get those results every week. And those results would mean that if we got a certain score, we would get work in the winter. And that means that we could go and work in some of the winter sun destinations. And I was very lucky I was the second highest customer service scoring rep in the world for Thomas Cook in my first year when I was working in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And that was a title that I very, very wanted to keep hold of. I wasn't very salesy, but I was very service focused. And when I came back to the UK, I enjoyed a really great career with Thomas Cook, and I worked my way up to one of the senior managers looking after the east coast of Turkey. But I just wanted to get a job. I just wanted to start my career all over again. And I just found it incredibly difficult to get a job. And the whole reason around that was perception. People thought that I was
Yeah.
a rep, as you've seen on television, that just goes away, gets drunk every night, gets up and is late for work every day, doesn't really have any kind of want or need to support any customers. And that perception was actually really difficult for me to deal with, because those employers had
Yeah.
no idea the challenges that I had to deal with when I was away. You know, we dealt with the ash cloud. When that happened, we had to repatriate 5,000 guests back from Cyprus. I dealt with the bin bombs in Egypt when I was there. I unfortunately flew out to Tunisia, and I had to work. I had to go and a duty of care to all the guests after the shootings that happened on the beach. It was, and you don't talk about those things all the time, but those are incredibly difficult things for me to deal with. And to try and convey that to somebody in an interview, when you see them looking back at you thinking, oh, this person's just been getting drunk every night, I didn't like that at all. And so when I was kind of going on my travels and talking to a lot of the PAs, I just felt like that a lot of people felt unseen and undervalued and unrecognized, and they absolutely loved their role, absolutely loved their job, absolutely loved supporting their boss or their executive, but just didn't feel seen. And that was the thing in my head that kind of clicked. And I just thought, hang on a minute, I love to bring people together, and I love to bring communities together. I love to see people that are in a room and no one's really talking to each other because they're not quite sure how to approach each other. And I love bringing people together. And I thought, that's the one thing I know how to do. And from there, it kind of snowballed into, oh, so you'd like this, or oh, so you'd like to do this, or yes, we could do that. And suddenly this community has been created, and it's something that I've always been incredibly proud of. I think for 5 years I've had massive imposter syndrome, because I've always been the only network leader in the UK that's never been working within the role. But I think I finally got over that now, and I think to myself, I'm confident in what we do. I feel that we do it with positivity, with the biggest place in our heart, to be able to do the very best that we can for the profession, and to represent the profession in the most positive and professional way that we possibly can, so that people appreciate the amazing, diverse talent that we celebrate within this incredible profession that we've all built together. So I just think it's I'm very privileged to be in this position, for sure.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So really, it came out of the unseenness. So you felt unseen, and you found all these other people that were unseen, and you decided you were going to make them seen, which is phenomenal. So can you tell me about let's move on to the mentoring initiative. I'm quite interested in that. What's that all about? Who takes part in that, and is it still going?
Yeah, so we started. So I guess to kind of get a little bit back before that,
chronology.
So I was full-time employed when I started the PA Forum. So I was running all of this in my own time. We built an amazing committee that supported us with all these different initiatives. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, I lost my job. I've always worked in travel and hospitality. It was incredibly difficult for me how do you get a job in travel and hospitality when the pandemic has...
There's no travel hospitality.
So my redundancy money, I invested into creating a membership portal for the PA Forum. And actually, that was a bit of a lifesaver for not just me, but for our community, because it meant there was a virtual world that we lived in together, and we were supporting each other pretty much every day with lots of different sessions. And you supported us so much through that time as well, Shelley, because it was great, because we just had a virtual audience that we could talk to all the time. And then I remember I made myself a promise in the pandemic that I would have a one-to-one phone call twice a day with 2 of our members, just to check in. And I very much, I was taught years ago that it's okay to have a how are you call, like to actually just ring somebody with no intention, nothing in your mind of what you want to get out of the call. Just ring them and say, how are you? I haven't spoken to you for a long time. And we've just done that this morning, haven't we, Shelley? I know we were recording this podcast, but it's just to really understand how is that person? How have you been? And I rang this wonderful lady called Tracy Whitehouse, who I mean,
Oh,
she's
I know Tracy.
incredible. And she
Yeah,
supported the CEO of DHL Supply Chain. And when she was at DHL Supply Chain, she established what was then called, what was then their women's network. And within the women's network, she created a framework for a mentoring initiative. And what was really successful at DHL was their reverse mentoring initiative. So the CEOs and the senior leadership team and the managing directors are spending time with some of the most junior people within the business, and they were learning so much from them. And they suddenly felt like the gap
yeah,
between the top of the kind of tree and the more entry level roles suddenly became a lot smaller. Yeah. And so
yeah.
Tracy said to me,
Fantastic.
wouldn't it be great if we could establish in the world, in a global pandemic, a mentoring initiative that was a buddying program, matching people together. And we had just an overwhelming response. I think this was 2020, 2021. And we were matching people to each other, and people were just giving back time, which was one of the most precious commodities that we have.
Yeah,
And they were just being able to support people through their journey. And it meant that some people coming through that mentoring initiative did step outside of the profession. They got a job within project management, or they may have got a job. Sorry, excuse me one second.
have some water. Have some water. We can
Thank
wait for you
you.
to take a sip of
Um,
water. It's,
yeah, and that was okay. Like that's brilliant. I think sometimes when you start the coaching or mentoring route, you have to be prepared that you never know what's going to come out the other end and at the other
yeah,
side, in the fact that you might go in with one thing in your mind that you want to achieve from it, but very quickly snowballs into something else. And it might be that you've just had a complete revelation and thought, "Do you know what, my skill set actually fits really lovely with this opportunity coming up," or actually, why am I working in this sector? It's not something that I don't feel
yeah.
passionate about it. Or it could be I've been doing, I've been in my role for over 20 years, and I feel like it's my time to be able to give back, and I've got a lot of experience that I'd like to share and encourage the next generation to absorb all that amazing experience and talent that's in our profession. Or you could be in an isolated role where it's only you within that organization. You just want to talk to somebody outside of your organization. And so it was really successful. However, it is very administratively, very, yeah.
Time
And
consuming.
so when you are working as a voluntary organization, and obviously if people are all volunteering their time, it does become something that, you have to kind of put the time aside to do it. And when there's a big response to something, it can be quite challenging. But what I love is I've seen so many more networks now launch their mentoring program. And the more that we can do together, working as one voice, as one profession, to be able to support, champion, celebrate, and educate those that are coming into this profession is only positive for us all, really.
Well, that sounds fantastic. So, what challenges have you faced supporting the PA roles? No, sorry, not supporting, promoting the importance of PA roles, and how have you addressed those challenges? Have there been challenges? Has it all tongue-in-cheek
Yeah.
question?
I
Tongue-in-cheek
think
question.
what I've learned throughout these 8 years is that, when I first came into to working and launching the PA forum, and also talking to my fellow peers with different network leaders, is that we are it is what we do is something that is incredibly valued by people. Now you will walk in. I've been into many organisations, Shelley, and I'll walk into a boardroom, and let's say there's 20 PAs in the room, and I might be presenting about what PA Forum as a community can do. And all I want them to know is that we're here. That's it. You can get involved if you want
Yeah,
to. You don't have to ever come to any of our events if you don't want to. That's absolutely fine. As long as you know that there are communities for you to be part of, if that's what you want to do. And sometimes in the first 7 minutes of me talking, I can see faces looking at me thinking, why am I in this meeting? I don't want to know what this is. I don't want to be here. And that's absolutely fine. But I will continue with my mission to let people know that for those of you that do want to get involved, we are all here for you. And that's great. And I think, a lot of us just want to come in, do our job, go home. Absolutely brilliant. But there are some out there that want to build their network, want to be able to talk to other people,
Yeah.
want to continue their training, want to polish upon some of their skills and knowledge. And I think all different networks and all different trainers provide different things for different people, depending on where you are right now in your career and what you want to kind of get out of the rest of that career, really. So I think engagement has been challenging on some occasions. I think we're not. I don't think I don't think we're very great at giving feedback either. I was talking about this the other day, and if we send out feedback forms, annually, quarterly, after our conferences, I don't feel like we're very good at giving feedback. Yet we're quite good at saying, "Oh, I really want training around this." Example, or I want training around that. And we tend to have a lot of the same responses, which will be, I want leadership skills training. Okay, but what does that mean? And I want to find out more about technology, but which technology and what technology is going to make, because it's all very well with us providing lots of different technology providers, but as we all know, with technology, there's always a cost that's associated with that. So
Yeah.
when you're doing training around technology, it's very difficult to kind of influence the business to be able to take that technology on board unless you've got a really strong internal network or a really great established administrative department that are all working with the collective goal to implement that type of technology. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot, that the push is coming from the administrative profession and using that as a broad title for all of the different assistant roles, administrative roles. And because they're going to benefit. Yes. However, from my experience of any project, technology project, it needs to be top-down driven, because if the CEO or the CFO or the COO don't buy into it, then there are going to be obstacles to its implementation. And, the IT department might be hesitant, and but the top echelons of the business need to turn around and say, look, we need to implement this because otherwise we're going to be left behind. We've all seen the emails floating around, the Salesforce, was it Salesforce? No, not the Salesforce, Shopify, the Shopify one, where the top head honcho said, unless you're using AI first, you can't come and talk to me about wanting something new because it might already be available. So you've got to ask those questions first. And what I found with the profession is it's the administrative profession who really want to improve their skills, because they know that if they know how to create a table of contents in Word in 2 minutes flat, that's going to save them an hour of typing it out manually. And I've trained so many students when they come to me and they're doing their dissertation, because they have a very strict template that they have to adhere to, and they need a table of contents and they need an index. And they've sat there and they've typed up the table of contents manually and then had to change paragraphs around, move things around. And then, of course, you've got to start all over again with your table of contents, instead of knowing how to use styles to organize your document, which generate an immediate table of contents, which then updates automatically. Same with the index. If you know how to index properly, when your page numbers change, you just update the index. You don't have to do anything else. Yes, it's a bit annoying to create an index. Having written several ebooks, I will say the most annoying part of writing a how-to guide for me is the index, coming up with what it should say and how it's structured. But aside from that, I know how to do it.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because we did an event a couple of weeks ago. Lucy Brazier was in Birmingham, and we hosted an event at Milton Reed offices in Birmingham. And what was really interesting is they said that the people that are championing AI within Milton Reed are the document production teams,
Yeah.
because the way that they are presenting, and what I found absolutely brilliant was that's a law firm, like using AI,
Yeah.
using it in the document production department, a department that is testing every element of AI to see what they can use it for. And they are actually making themselves the experts. So, and that is then encouraging the PAs and the EAs then go on and use. And it's really important that we understand what is it that we're using AI for and what is it going to save us time on.
Yeah.
And I actually, with this podcast, Shelley, it's quite interesting because this is where the world of VA and EA, I feel, collide, because we were talking about
Yes.
timesheets. So VAs obviously log timesheets for particular clients. And we were talking about whether it would be a really good exercise for PAs to do
Mhm.
timesheets just for a week on
Of what they do.
do a timesheet for tasks not using AI in 1 week, and then do a timesheet on tasks where you do use AI. And that way you compare and you can see exactly how much time it's taking you to do one task, and then how much time it's taking you to do the other. And I think that is a tool that VAs use because they have to charge their rates to
Yeah.
different clients. And I look at
Yeah.
timesheets with the VAs that I'm very lucky to work with, and I think now I can look, if they've done a particular type of project, how much actually that costs the business for them to do, or whether that's something that is a very good use of their time, or is that something that could be outsourced to another person that could be that could do it differently, and then that person could then focus on a different task. So I think that's where the VA and the employed world and the
Yeah.
self-employed world can come together really nicely.
Yeah. I mean, we were chatting about it before we came on air, but so I'm going to steer the conversation in a slightly different direction, having now introduced the topic of AI. Because we were talking about my big idea, of which there's going to be more on in the next couple of weeks. So listeners, look out for lots of blog posts and LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, wherever and everywhere, posts from me about my big idea, which is that AI is your superpower. But without your basic Microsoft Office skills, if you're in an environment that uses Office, particularly that's where my focus is. So if you're in a Microsoft 365 organization, knowing the fundamentals of the Office applications is crucial to the element of AI. So if you're using a licensed version of Copilot, then that's just going to increase your output exponentially. And take you can go into OneDrive and ask it to summarize half a dozen documents for you, or even PDFs it will summarize for you. And, I've had that. I've had weeks ago, I hosted Susan Engelbrecht and Kathy Williams-Harris from the Panzer Network. So I had 2 CVs, 2 biographies, and all the information about what they do. So I just went into OneDrive online, selected those files, both of their bios, and asked Copilot to summarize them for me. And it did. It created me one document. Now, I don't feel that that's cheating, but if I had to do that myself, and I would sit down, read through it, understand it, pick out the salient points from each document, and then combine them and put them in a sensible order. And Copilot did that for me in about 5 minutes. Now, that would have probably less than that, but it would have taken me a long time to do that. I used it to help me with ideas for things. And then I take those ideas and I refine them. And I've got a big media campaign coming up to support my big idea. So look out for that. And lots of that, it hasn't completely been generated by Copilot. And I do admit to using ChatGPT as well for things that are not inside my business. If it's for general things, I do find ChatGPT extremely useful. And it's just so helpful. And so it's not stopping me, or it's not going to replace me. It just means I've got more time to do the other things that I'm much better at than that. And if I need copy, I actually go to a copywriter because it's more human.
And I think No,
You were
I
going to
just
say
think, I think,
something.
what I run as part of our community, we do cohorts of network training. So, and it's difficult because to say network training, it's not, it's more coaching and it's more encouragement around
Yeah,
networking. And we split it into three ways. We split it into internal networking, virtual networking, and in-person networking. Because it's really important that we build those relationships internally because we do live in a
yeah,
more virtual, a more detached world. But what the advantage of working virtually is we've got the screen as our protection blanket, which is fantastic. And let's use that to our advantage. And then if you build up a
yeah.
really good virtual network using social media, that will make your life so much easier when you walk into that room for the very first time and you see those people. Shelley and I only met actually in person 3 years ago, was it, Shelley?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
PA,
And
yeah, you came, I was presenting and exhibiting, and
yeah.
you showed up. I've got
Yeah,
photographs
and
to
then
prove it.
so basically, I very much as part of that say one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get is I don't know what to post on social media. Why is it what I've got? I don't think I've got anything interesting to say. This is feedback that I regularly get.
Yeah,
I sit and look at the cursor flashing, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know where to type. AI is your friend. Use it. If there is topics that are really, really of importance to you right now, if there's things out there that you want to find out more information about, you want people to signpost you to things, use AI as your friend. Don't take it because I think there are some people out there where it's very clear to see that all their posts are AI. That's fine, but you have to inject your personality. You have to be your true authentic self in some way because otherwise when you go on to meet that person,
yeah,
they're not going to be a full representation of the person that you've met or have built a relationship with in social media. And also, I've also recommended people, there's feedback from recruiters at the moment about how much you use AI for job applications. You have to be
and
very careful because the language that it uses and the way that it's structured, it can be quite obvious to employers if somebody is using
yeah.
AI. And there was an example not this year, but last year, where when we were doing our awards nominations, our committee actually said to me, and I didn't notice this, but this is why I have some of the most amazing people
A
in,
brilliant
in our
committee. Yeah.
profession looking at because they have got an eye for detail and they won't miss a trick. But there were three nominations which were exactly the same.
Oh my
And we were
goodness.
like, it's great that that person's made that nomination, but they've clearly used AI to do it, not made any personalization about it, and not given any specific.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
that just disqualified them straight
but
away,
then
of course. I mean, I write for occasionally for Executive Support magazine, and they put there are apps that will go through your article and check, they can tell whether it was written by a human or
I
not,
mean,
because they have to be written by a human. And which is
yeah,
hard. But you might use AI to start you off. You might use AI to give you an idea about I want to write about this topic. What should
yeah,
I include? I'll do that quite a lot. And then I get a structure. Then I look at the structure and I say, don't like that. For example, I have to record a session for the EA campus for one of their virtual summits. And I've just asked Copilot, I've got a 30-minute session to prepare on this topic. What should I include? I mean, I know what I want to include, but I wanted to see what it would say. It's different to what I would include. And I don't like some of the things it
mm,
suggested, but it has given me a few ideas of how I could structure my content. So it saved me some thinking time. Talking
yes,
about time, I think we need to start wrapping up.
Shelley.
Sure, literally. So have you got any tips? I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, have you got any tips for people in the administrative profession in this uncertain age? Because we were talking before we came on air about it does feel a bit uncertain at the moment. And a lot of that is down to the fear of AI taking over the world and taking our jobs away. But I certainly don't think it's going to do that. Yes, some jobs will go, but the mundane stuff that AI can do, I was going to say with its eyes
Mm,
closed, but you know what I mean. Not with its
yeah,
algorithm, it can do it. I liken it to the Industrial Revolution. When factories started coming in, a lot of people lost jobs, but then other jobs are created. And I think that's going to be the same thing. And those assistants who embrace the AI revolution are going to be the ones who succeed, in my opinion. So what tips have you got, if
So
you
I
have
would
any?
say my first thing is just going back to the mentoring initiative that we talked about. If you are 75% of our community have been in their role for over 20 years. Yeah. So I
Wow.
would say, please spend time with those that are coming in and learn from them, learn the skills that they're coming in with and pass on your skills to them. There is going to be a huge gap in those that are starting to retire or move on to different projects of the new generation coming in, and we need to be able to support them as much as we can with the skills that you've learned through so many years. But it's important that they can teach us so much. I think establishing an internal mentoring program that can encourage that community and that department to come together is essential. Keep going with your internal PA networks. I think there's been a bit of fatigue from a lot of different companies. You keeping that strength together and that one voice internally is going to be really important, because when the company does come to make some really tough decisions, they need to be able to understand the skills within that internal PA community and the value that department can bring. And if you haven't got an administrative department, this is the time to start implementing one and start the process with HR to be establishing an administrative department internally. Embrace AI, use it. Heather Murray, who is one of our speakers at conference this year, she was a PA for 25 years and she spent 4 hours a day learning ChatGPT. Now, I'm not saying to anybody spend 4 hours a day learning ChatGPT. That's what Shelley and everybody else does, probably. But Heather has, she started her own business, and she has become an expert in her field. She was one of the first 10 people in the world to be flown out to OpenAI to ask for her feedback about the administrative world and how that can be used. So become the expert, like Shelley said. Take advantage of the training, find out what's out there, get your team involved, and just keep learning. And also, my final point would be just continue to support your networks, because we are all here because we volunteer to do it. None of us are commercial machines that are just making lots of money out of assistance. And, we're here because we love what we do. We love our profession, but we will only be here as long as everybody else keeps being involved with us. So please continue to come along and continue to be part of your local networks and communities and be there to support each other, because that's where the information is going to lie about what everyone's doing at all of their different organisations as well.
Yeah, I think those are brilliant tips. And I think this thing about the networks and a lot of people setting them up voluntary, I've spoken to several network leaders, PA network leaders, VA network leaders throughout the podcast, and it's completely fascinating. And the other fascinating point that just kind of sprung to mind is there are so many networks because there are so many administrative professionals, and every network brings something different, and it will match. One person will match this and not that, and one person will match that and not this. And we're all different in the same way that we all learn in a different way. And as a trainer, I have to present my training in different ways so that everybody gets something out of it. It's the same thing. We don't all click with everybody straight away. Some people, you meet them the first time, you think, I never want to know this person and don't want to see that person again. And other people, you want to be their best friend. So,
I'll tell you.
So
I was delivering a session on Teams, and I was just talking to this particular company about what the PA Forum does. And when I talk about the PA Forum, I signpost constantly, because we are very Midlands based. I signpost to a lot of different networks, lots of different trainers, lots of different resources. It's important that we support each other. And within the first 3 minutes of me talking, somebody was off mute and said, "Oh my God, this is the most annoying person I've ever heard in my life." But it just goes, that did stop me in my tracks, Shelley. I'm not going to lie. But
what did you say
I
to
just
them?
carried on because I thought there was quite a lot of people on this call. But it just goes to show we're not everyone's cup of tea. You're not going to be, you can't please everybody. And that's fine. You will, but what's important is that we all know that there is a space for you somewhat in the place that you want to be, and you'll find your
Yeah.
community, you'll find your people in those places. And it's important that we support and we come together and we really present a really positive view of our profession going forward, and that AI is not going to necessarily wipe out the entire profession, that we are going to be here to learn, to be inquisitive, to be curious, to learn more. And that's what we all need to do, and come together and just be in a more positive place, I think.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Daniel. It's been an amazing episode. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you. It's been ages since we caught up, and it's been really refreshing and lovely to talk to you. And we'll look out for each other everywhere
Yes,
we are online, and support each other as well.
100%.
That's really cool. So thank you very much for coming on Virtually Amazing Assistants, the podcast for assistants everywhere. And we've recorded this today, listeners, on the 21st of May. It will be going out next Tuesday. I think it's the 27th of May. So, listeners, I'll see you next
Thank
time.
you.